Hello and welcome to episode number 38 of the Fourmation Podcast. It's the second episode that we've done this week, and we're recording this just over 12 hours after England triumphed over Denmark at Wembley, 2-1 in extra time. And it, of course, books England's first place in a major tournament final since 1966, since they won the World Cup. Just 12 hours on, it still doesn't quite feel real, but we just thought we're going to jump on a call. We're going to have a chat about it. We haven't really got much of a plan for how this is going to go. At least I haven't got much of a plan. But like I said, we're just going to give it a go, have a chat through how we're feeling, talk about that penalty that was given, whether it should have been given, whether it shouldn't, and then have a look ahead to the final on Sunday. Which is going to be quite some day. But first of all, how are we all feeling? I said it doesn't quite feel real. Has it sunk in for anyone else yet? Sam, how are you feeling?
No, it's gonna take a long while after the tournament's finished, I think, for it all to sink in. But it's been a brilliant couple of weeks, and we're still going for the final game, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a cracking final.
Devon, it hasn't sunk in for you either.
A shake of the head to the audio.
It's not. It's just.
It's going to take a while for the country as a whole to recover. Yeah. I think if we go on and win it, it's going to be one lockdown to a shutdown. I think.
I tell you what, we're gonna if something happens on Sunday that goes in our favour, I'm pretty sure the next time we're all sober will be 2022, won't it?
Do you think it's a difficult one to measure maybe for Southgate, because I think it's 3 nights until the final is played, and the players have had that high of the other night, and now they've somehow got to turn their attentions to winning a game against probably the toughest opponent we've faced this tournament. How do they go about that switch, Harry? Or do they have to enjoy it? Because like we've said, it's been so long since we have been in a final.
I think everything's just sort of been set up perfectly by Gareth Southgate through the tournament. After we got through the group, beating Germany, that's a massive thing to get through. So they've had that high. Then we had Ukraine afterwards. So it was a bit of a rotated squad. So the other players that came in wanted to prove themselves. Not massively rotated, but a player here or there. So that's them that wants to prove themselves. They got a massive 4-0 win. Then we came into this game. We came back from behind. It was a motive of getting to the final, playing in extra time. So it was a completely new situation then. And then there's another massive new situation that we can be the first. We can win our first thing since 1966. So each game's had its own sort of plan, its own aim at the end of the game. There's not been any game where you can go, we can just walk past these, or there's no sort of high that if we win this. Every single game has had its individual part that we've had to get through, and that's the brilliance of this tournament so far.
Yeah, I think, as you say there, Southgate deserves so much praise for guiding us through the knockout stages so seamlessly. And he was doubted earlier on in the tournament in the group stage, wasn't he? But I think no one could be any happier for him.
What are you talking about, George?
Well, I'm not going to name any names.
You're right.
But I think he's been pretty composed in the previous games with his celebrations. But there was that moment last night when he approached the end of the ground that was packed with England fans. You could just see that release, and that must have felt so good, mustn't it?
Absolutely. And I think he's, like you say, he was calm and cool as ever when he approached the Denmark manager to console him. And then when he saw those fans just bounce, and he couldn't help himself. And fair enough, because it's being England manager is the most pressurized job in world football. I think almost the amount of expectation that comes with it, and the way he's just dealt with it, the World Cup included, the way he's put all that pressure on his shoulders and taken his team forward and united a nation once again. You have to give so much respect to him, and here we are in the final.
Absolutely right. The Ian Wright celebrations as well with Emma Hayes, I think ITV used that as kind of summing up how that felt. I just thought that just makes you smile seeing stuff like that, doesn't it? Like Ian Wright has gone on and on for years. I feel like he's been doing the England coverage for so long and saying about how much it means to him, and he was there to see that happen. I mean, God knows what's going to happen if we do win that final, like we've said.
I reckon it'll just be a bungee jump from that press box down to the fans from Ian Wright. We're going to have to control him just in case, because, wow.
I don't know. Go on, Harry.
I think it's just the brilliance of seeing fans celebrate. And I sort of think for the montage, the Harry Kane miss to then score wouldn't look as clean. But for the fans, I think when you look at the things, that it's that massive sigh of, oh no, we've missed. And then it's the recognition that there's literally an open goal and he smacks it in. And I watched those things all day, all night, because everyone's together in this. When it's your specific team, there's only so many videos you can see, because obviously there's not, Southampton fans across the country, but everyone in this country is almost, or has a connection to England. And also it's sort of quite nice to see the Denmark fans celebration and then not celebrate the other two goals as well.
It's just the combined outpouring of emotion of having 18 months of no fans in football stadiums, as well as the 55 years for England fans of not having any sort of glory like this before. And it's just all of that's come together, and it's just, as you can see, the scenes at full time, just brilliant.
It sort of personifies England as a whole, because you miss it, and it seems like that miss was all of the moments leading up to that point, like the near misses, the near getting into that final, this and that, 2010 disappointment, not even getting to Euro 2008. And then as it rolled back to Kane, it was like this sort of generation of players, this squad going, do you know what? We're going to do it for you. And this just stroking it home sort of felt like that sort of breaking the barrier of this is a different England now. And just it was such a slow 3 seconds that.
It was a crazy moment, wasn't it? Because I don't know how you were feeling, but when I saw it was Kane stepping up, I actually had a little doubt that he was going to score. Because he's normally so clinical
bread and butter
in those situations.
Yeah. I thought there's no other person I'd want taking this right now than Harry Kane, but probably the worst penalty he's taken in his career, probably. And he got very lucky in the end, but we've had absolutely no luck as an England side in recent times, so I will take it.
Absolutely.
I just think it was just look at it, like even before he picked up ball, you're thinking, God, right, now we're 2-1 up, we need to just keep on top, keep control of the ball, and we're not even taking it yet. I think that's how much confidence we had in him, and luckily it came off in the end, but no doubt in Harry Kane, is there? Come on.
Do you think we should maybe feel lucky, like at our age, that something like this has come along so soon? Because I think my dad was born in 1967, and so the year after we won the World Cup, and he's been waiting for this for so long. And we've had 20 years, sure, and we've had to sit through several tournaments of dross, but it's just, there will be England fans who have travelled across Europe, across the world to watch this, and now it's suddenly here. I think that's why it does feel so special, doesn't it? And maybe people from other countries will be looking at it thinking, oh, they're going over the top, they haven't won anything yet. But it's not over the top, is it?
No, it's like everyone saying how arrogant the "it's coming home" slogan for England is, but there's so much more than just us winning a football tournament. I think it's how, especially like in the media, people poke fun at England. You talk about Eurovision where politics come into it, people hate England, but it's taking it all away from that. It's more of a belief. The song itself is sort of poking fun at England's misses and how we're always going to say, oh yeah, it's coming home. It's like kind of I don't know, not a cliche, but a sort of like, well, see you later. It's like, but now it's just that little bit of belief, and especially after the last 18 months, it's sort of like it's coming to its own of especially two of the worst, starting with the COVID-19 stuff, two of the worst affected countries at the start, Italy and England, sort of get this moment to kind of have a little bit, not redemption, but a little bit of happiness after a dreary year.
Absolutely right. And we'll come on to chat about both the England game in more depth, but also the other semi-final, in which we may as well say Italy are through. So we'll play Italy in the final. If you were an Italian player or an Italian fan now, Harry, would you be scared of facing England after seeing those crazy celebrations at full time? You could see those England players. I don't think they have that much doubt that they're capable of doing it in the final. Would you be scared of that? Or on the other hand, they've been unbeaten for so long, so they'll believe in themselves, you'd think.
I think the players' doubt's gone. I think the fans' doubt's gone. So I think everyone's going to be behind the team in England in the Euros at Wembley. I think the home advantage is massive, and I think that certainly played a part in the game in the semi-final. And I thought Italy were going to wipe away Spain. And the fact that they looked a bit, they struggled a bit and they got all the way to penalties. And obviously you're not fortunate to win a penalty shootout by any stretch of the imagination, but they wasn't phenomenal penalties left, right and centre. They've shown obvious weaknesses throughout the tournament. People sort of forget about the Austria game where they had to go to extra time. You forget about the Spain game. Well, not forget about the Spain game. You think about the Spain game where they had obvious weaknesses, where Spain really could have got a win. Oyarzabal missed two massive chances where he didn't even have a shot for either of them, and that could have been Spain through. So I'd be very nervous as far as Italy. And if anything, it's really hiked up the confidence of every single England fan.
Yeah. But just to be devil's advocate here, I think you can flip that as well and say that Italy have shown that they can be very adaptable, and especially in extra time against Spain, they reverted back to their old ways almost of being defensively solid. There's two centre backs, Bonucci, Chiellini, combined age of 70, and they've just been so solid all tournament, and they showed that against Spain. They did ride their luck a little bit. You're right, Harry, but they've shown that they can be adaptable and play all the sides of the game really well. So it'll be tough, but like you say, all those other factors that go into it for England, the confidence at an all-time high, and basically being the home team in this sense and having the home advantage will be huge.
I suppose Italy struggling like that is sort of the way that people would tell in England how would they react when they go one goal behind, and it's sort of just different experiences coming to one. If they'd have got through that semi-final against Spain more comfortably, I think I'd be a little bit more confident, because Italy haven't been challenged properly up until that point, apart from the Austria game as mentioned. But I think that really took it out on them. And hopefully with them chasing Spain's possession-based style, they might be a little bit more knackered than we are.
Yeah, maybe you're right. The fact that we played a day later, I suppose that could play a part in the final. But as I said, we'll come on to that a little bit shortly, but we'll go through the finals now, I reckon. So we've had two bumper semi-finals so far. Of course, the England one, which we'll come on to discuss in a little bit more depth in a bit. But first of all, on Tuesday evening, when we were all a bit calmer and we were all just getting set for the big England game, it was the first semi-final between Italy and Spain, and it was a very entertaining one. I think Danny Murphy said it was the best game he'd watched in years. I think you could maybe argue that there have been better ones, but still, I don't think it was too much of an over-exaggeration, because it was a pretty compelling watch. Italy came through it on penalties, but in terms of the actual game itself, Devon, what did you make of it?
Well, despite missing most of it, it seemed like a fun game. I think most sides just tend to just go reserved, and sometimes the occasion gets to them too much. But both sides went at it. However, I do think Spain caused Italy problems, especially from the off. It took 15 minutes or so for Italy to actually get into full, not even into a rhythm, because I think Spain's possession style sort of knocked that anyway and didn't allow them to go really fluid. But yeah, that's all I've got to pretty much say. It's unlucky for Spain not to be able to capitalise on it more, but it should give us a little bit of hope. I think Italy missed Spinazzola's presence on the left. I think there were a few times that it was mentioned that where he would normally occupy, and Chiellini would trust him to get back in time because he's just like an engine. He was actually having to cover for Emerson, and Emerson would just go in on the overlap every time, whereas Spinazzola can mix it up, as we know.
Sam, you touched briefly in the kind of intro section about how impressed you've been with how Italy have transitioned in different scenarios in games, and how much did they have to do that in this game against Spain?
They very much had to do so because Spain, once again, that was one of the things that I was talking about before the game, was whether Spain would sort of change their style of play, but they didn't really, and they still dominated the ball. I think they still had over 70% of the possession. And unfortunately for Spain, in the end, their old problems reared their head, like I said, and they missed a lot of chances, Oyarzabal especially, when if he got any contact on that header, it probably would have gone in, but just missed it in the end. And Morata, although he got the vital equaliser to take it to extra time, his penalty woes continued. But to go back to Italy, yes, they had to. I mean, for a team that's been 33 games unbeaten, won 13 in a row, now you have to adapt. You have to change your style of play. Sometimes you can't go the same way every time against every team you come up against. And like I said, they had to ride their luck a little bit in some senses, but defend really well once again. Like I mentioned, that centre back pair, ever reliable, and they're into the finals of the Euros because of that. Because they've been able to adapt to every situation. They were, free scoring in the group stage, but as the knockout rounds have come, they've had to switch back to their old traditional Italian defensive ways in some instances.
Yeah, and I don't know how you felt, Harry, but I thought for normal time and in extra time as well, that Spain probably just edged it. But what does it tell you about how big of a challenge it will be for England against Italy, that Spain were maybe the better team, but there weren't actually that many moments where you felt that Donnarumma was under threat? Because while they were very good in possession, they didn't really create that many clear-cut opportunities.
Depends on the way you look at it. You could say Italy were very good defensively, and they stopped Spain from getting those attacks. You could certainly make an argument for it. Look, Spain scored 5 in 2 separate games, and they look okay attacking wise in their previous game as well. But also, I think Spain did have a couple of opportunities, like we said earlier, where they didn't have a shot. Morata did score, yes. Oyarzabal had 2 opportunities where he didn't even touch the ball. There was one in the first half where he was just about onside, but his touch let him down. If he just let the ball come across his body, he was one-on-one with Donnarumma. And like Sam said, he was in absolute acres of space in the back post, and he sort of touch on it, and that's a goal. And people don't look at that. I know not a lot of people look at XG or anything like that, but if they even get a shot away, that'll count as part of their XG map, and maybe that goes a lot higher. So it really depends on sort of what outlook you look at. I'm trying to look at the more positive side and say, well, Spain's attacking unit isn't as good as ours. They don't create as many opportunities as us, despite the fact that, okay, maybe apart from the Ukraine game, we haven't been massively or absolutely humongously creative. We were okay yesterday, but in other games, maybe not as much. So I think they can take confidence out of the fact that they got through the game, that they can win a game even when they're not dominating, where they're not necessarily the better side. Look, Spain had 16 shots that game. And that's why we're going to look at the more positive side and go, do you know what? We can get at this team. We can really get at this team.
It's really been a team effort for Italy as well.
Yeah.
I think they've got 5 players that have scored 2 goals or more in this competition, which shows how much of a team effort it has to be. Everyone's had to contribute at different stages, and that's, definitely a positive for them. They'd obviously like someone like Immobile to have come up with more goals at this stage. And like I say, they don't really have that out-and-out goal scorer in their team, but like I say, it's been a huge team effort, and that's been the theme of their tournament.
Yeah, and Devon, we've spoken a lot during the league season about Timo Werner and his misfortunes at Chelsea, and I feel like the direct comparison to Werner in this tournament is Alvaro Morata, and I think you have to feel sympathy for him again, don't you? Because it felt like in this game, maybe it was going to be his moment, and then suddenly he comes out almost as a villain from his penalty miss. How much sympathy do you have for him?
It's not nice, but as we've said before, someone has to miss the penalty. And when it's tight like that, it's not nice to see. I think Morata does get some unfair criticism at times, just because some of the stuff he does is absolutely brilliant. However, some of the misses that he has is glaring. It's hard to judge because his game's not really prolific. We know that. And he does bring other sides to it. His link-up play is better. He drops him, brings sort of wingers into play, and that's what worked at times at Chelsea, bringing Hazard in and Willian off the flanks. But when you are playing as that number 9, everyone still expects you to score goals, and he did in the game, but it's them big pressure moments, and he's never been able to live up to that, unfortunately.
He's still their top scorer at the European Championships of all time now. So it's funny that we have to talk about him in this way. But like you say, as anyone else to miss that penalty really other than Morata, I would have preferred, because he has had to endure a lot from the Spanish faithful during this tournament. They've put a lot of pressure on him, and he has come up in instances, but he's also faltered in others. So that's really been how his tournament's gone.
I mean, Arizabal missed golden opportunities, and he's not received as much flack for that as well. And I mean, I suppose it's like, I think people do see Morata as sort of the talisman that's going to score all these goals. He'll get you that many goals, but it's, like I said, it's other parts of his game that he brings into it. And I think it was a little bit like when Kane started this tournament. He received a lot of flack, even though he was doing the other side of the game, the ugly side of the game, and now obviously Kane's found his form again after a little break. But overall, I think Morata, let's cut him some slack. Let's give Morata some love.
Yeah,
he needs it, especially after missing that penalty.
Yeah, it wasn't a brilliant penalty whatsoever, but people also forget the fact that Busquets missed a penalty right at the start. People sort of really think, it's the person that missed the crucial one that was the most important. No, if Busquets gets that ball on target, he sent the goalkeeper the wrong way, whether he's thought about that much or not, coming as the first penalty taker, he probably was given that responsibility. If he scores that, then it could be a completely different story. So, and did Olmo miss as well? Or did he score? I can't quite remember.
I think the first 2 penalties were missed, weren't they?
Yeah, exactly. So if he scores, it's a different story once again.
I suppose that is the brutality of a shootout, isn't it? Like you say, Harry, it all depends on who goes at which position. I'm sure Busquets will be feeling it as well, but I suppose he's got that backing, having been involved in previous great Spain sides. Anyway,
I mean, the better shootout were the one between Argentina and Colombia, weren't it, with Martinez's antics and mind games that were. But like, to be fair, speaking of mind games, Jorginho cheerleader, what were he doing before that? Coin toss to Jordi Alba. What the hell happened there?
That's just his character, isn't it? Just a lot of touching. I think
brilliant.
Try and psych. Because if that was Sergio Ramos, he's not doing that to Sergio Ramos, is it? He knows, Jordi Alba. Come on, he's a little man. He can get.
Like Jordi Alba just looked like a kid that had been told off, and someone's trying to say, "Come on, cheer up," and he weren't having any of it. And I think that summed up Italy's confidence that they knew they were going through. Because I mean, Spain had the previous penalties looming over them with. If it weren't for Switzerland deciding, you know what, we'll do goalkeeper-dependent penalties rather than just doing what we did against France, Spain probably would be in that semi-final. They just, it's very lucky, but yeah.
Yeah, and let's hope that Chiellini isn't smiling quite like that come Sunday evening. But I'm sure Harry Kane will have something in mind if it ever gets to that point. But Devon, you mentioned there about Harry Kane returning to fine form. We saw against Ukraine, he got those 2 goals. Now he's maybe nearing the golden boot, of course, after that goal, the winning goal against Denmark last night. But it wasn't plain sailing for England. I think, Sam, you kind of teed it up in the last episode with your prediction. You said you don't think we can carry on keeping clean sheets forever, and you turned out to be correct. And you also eyed up Damsgaard, isn't it?
Damsgaard, yeah.
Damsgaard, who put Denmark ahead. What a free kick that was. I know a lot of people have been questioning Pickford, maybe saying it wasn't in the top corner, but I'm kind of sitting on the side of, no, it was a brilliant hit.
It wasn't in the corner by any means, but the power and the dip that he got on it's very hard for a keeper to save. And just as he was taking it, it seemed that the wall seemed to shuffle over and it almost blocked Pickford's sight, because he did react quite late to it in the end. But I'm not going to give him too much, flack for that, because it was a brilliant free kick from Damsgaard, who's been one of the young players of the tournament for me. Absolutely brilliant. But yeah, it was a bit of a well, once we conceded, it was a bit ragged from England at times, like adjusting to. So we haven't conceded yet in the tournament, so it took some adjusting, I think. But once we got our heads back in the game, we were the dominant team, I think, towards the end of the game, especially for the last 25 minutes or so. Denmark weren't really creating much, and also during extra time as well. So people will say, well, we were lucky with the penalty decision and how the penalty went, but I think we were the team on the ascendancy, on top, controlling the game at that period, and I think we deserved to get that goal in the end, that winning goal.
Yeah, and you mentioned there the period after the goal, and I think the one picture that was shown on the TV footage of Harry Kane, kind of, you could see the Denmark fans behind him, and Kane was pointing at his head, telling his teammates to keep their heads, and that must have been so important. And I think Southgate said after the game, they were prepared for that scenario because, as you said, we were always going to concede at some point. And Kane played a key role, of course, with that equaliser, Harry. And he's been doing that all year at Tottenham, that link from kind of the number 10 position. But it was some pass, wasn't it?
It's a brilliant pass, but it's also a fantastic run from Saka. Saka wasn't in my 26-man squad. He probably would have been in my 30-man squad if you could have that many players. But he's well and truly deserved his place. Every time he stepped on the pitch for England, he's shown he's an integral member of that squad. And that run just showed it. Sterling, yes, he missed a chance just before that, but getting near Kerr, is that how you pronounce his name? Forcing him to make a decision. And if he wasn't going to score the own goal, Sterling was right there from 5 yards out just to tap it open. And yes, we did go 1-0 down, but if you look at the entire squad, how many of those Denmark players would get into our starting 11? Yes, they got to the semi-final, but the amount of quality that we have compared to them, it was always going to happen, or at least not hypothetically, looking back in hindsight, it's easier to say that it's always going to happen, that we'd be able to get back in the game. And that's exactly what happened, all through the game, we dominated. And when we got to the 1-1 stage, people like Sam said would have said yes, the penalty might not have gone in, but the Denmark players were knackered. At 2-1, I feel like we could have gone on and scored a couple more, but we were playing sensible. We were keeping the ball. That 3-minute spell, I know we'll get onto it a bit later, but that 3-minute spell between about the 26th and the 29th minute, when we just kept possession so easily, I feel like we really could have scored there. So it was always going to happen. It just depended when we were going to score. And sadly for the Denmark fans, it was a bit of a dodgy penalty that decided it for them.
Yeah, it certainly was great composure shown in extra time. Do you agree with that, Devon, what Harry just said there about the second half of normal time, in that the players knew the goal would come eventually, so they maybe held back from going full throttle in that second half?
Yeah, definitely. I think they, even when we, like Sam said, the reaction to going behind was fantastic. The Sterling chance that was created just before that, great save from Schmeichel, but after the goal, I think England really needed half-time. There were a period where Denmark, especially in possession, looked really good, and I thought, we've got to work cut out here because we just need to get to extra time, get to half-time, regroup, and then come out in the second half, and they came out perfectly. Denmark tired more so of, I think the emotion got to them a little bit, especially in that period before the break, but they were just chasing England, weren't they? And it was just important that, as we saw in the 87th minute, they sort of just tempo dropped. England retained possession. They knew that, I think Denmark throwing 4 players on at once and sort of upset their rhythm as well. And England said, if them 4 players chase the ball down now, by the time we get to extra time, we'll bring on a couple of fresh legs. We'll be all right. And just it was absolutely superb keep ball, wasn't it? Just I remember like my mum were next to me going, "Oh, let's just score a third goal." And I'm thinking, look, if we overexert ourselves here, it's going to be a bit. On Sunday, we're going to be a very leggy, and we just control. It would just look like a training session for that last 15 minutes. Never mind the last 3, like Harry was saying. It was just perfect to watch. I don't think England necessarily. I know we said about Ukraine, but I think that performance was just one of our best this tournament, just because of the actual management of the whole game and stuff like that. And Southgate's decision making were absolutely spot on.
Yeah, this
Like,
game. Yeah, go on, Harry.
Yeah, I think it's just the mentality that we showed as well. Like we've all mentioned, did we have it in the locker? Will we have it in the locker? We had exactly that. We were faced with challenges that we never haven't had this tournament previously because we hadn't conceded. With the game management and keeping the ball, I know Denmark were knackered, but if they got us on the counter from us trying to score a goal, we'd be kicking ourselves and thinking, oh, if we just chucked it in the corner, game over, finished. We did better than chuck it in the corner. We didn't let them even come anywhere near the ball, really, for the last 3 minutes. And it was absolutely superb to watch. And that Jack Grealish moment, I know he got taken off, but it just shows how good of a core team, how good the core of the team is. Because I think he knows it's better for the team. Maybe a lot of people didn't agree with it, but him coming off may have been integral. Don't get me wrong, I still think we'd have won. But if Gareth thinks that's the best decision to make, he's got to make it. And he's really showed there, he's got the power in his mind to make that call where maybe Roy Hodgson might not have made that call, for example.
Yeah.
The thing is as well, go on, Sam, you had a point before.
Yeah, well, I'm basically just repeating what Harry said here.
Apologies, Sam.
This game, it's fine. It's fine. This game was like really a true indication of how the mentality change that this England team has gone through under Southgate, going behind, which you haven't done yet in the tournament, but replying with such conviction, really, and going on the front foot instantly. And this is the first knockout game we've won after going behind since the 1990 World Cup, which just shows how long that mentality change has taken to come about. And under Southgate, it really has. And just, Harry said it really, and it was just a brilliant comeback in the end.
Yeah, I'll continue while George is frozen. I'll let him defrost for a little bit there. But yeah, I just think like the decision making from even them, like to bring Declan Rice off and keep Phillips on at that point as well for Henderson. I think Henderson added that energy naturally anyway, but the decision to keep Phillips on, who would do the defensive side, but also keep those progressive passes coming in from deep. And I thought he were absolutely fantastic last night, Calvin Phillips. But he shook off the first 15 minutes where I think he looked nervous and the occasion got to him. But after that, he just the niggly fouls that he does turned into actual tackles, and it seemed to grow and grow with every minute that were going on, every successful pass. I remember the one where I don't know. I think he's going to take it as he meant it, but the one that went about, I think it went above the roof of Wembley, dropped down, and he just hit it with his ankle straight through to shore or something like that.
I think it was Rice, yeah.
It just seemed like
it didn't look like he meant it, but if he did, then fair play.
It just like previous England teams wouldn't try that. They try and trap the ball down and then give it back to Pickford and set again. And I think this England side is just more adventurous, especially when you've got players like Mason Mount. When we were in difficult periods, I think Mason Mount were absolutely brilliant. He were everywhere in that last third. Sterling, we haven't seen too much of Sterling running at players, and I think last night we saw it more so of what his abilities, what he's capable of.
Can get the ball off him, really, especially in that extra time when we needed someone to carry the ball to kill the game. Sterling was brilliant at that, and he had that chance right at the very end to score that third goal. But yeah, he was brilliant. I mean, he has been the whole tournament, and he's gone against all the critics he's had, all the demons he's had in the past. But yeah, so many brilliant individual performances, like you say. Kyle Walker as well, the amount of ground he covered in defence. Whenever Denmark got him behind, I wasn't that worried because I knew Kyle Walker would be there tracking the man and covering the space because he's using his pace very effectively in that sense.
Even the back four, like as a collective, just Maguire, absolutely superb. But Luke Shaw, stand above, probably been one of the best left backs at this tournament, better than better than Spinazzola. Now we can say that, all right. As a left back, and what he's brought to England, much better. Come on, I believe in the hype.
Maybe a performance in the final will get him in that team of the season over Spinazzola. I just wanted to say as well, in the pub where I was watching it last night, I overheard several interesting opinions on what Southgate should do in the game, etc. I think the most questionable of those was towards the end of normal time when a man just behind me called for Sterling to be subbed off. He was made to look very silly a few moments
like he
later.
had the most energy in extra time. I sort of thought the same thing when he took Grealish off. I was like, surely he's fresher than Sterling if you're going to bring off one of those attacking players. But his ball carrying in extra time was brilliant.
He was fantastic.
I would do it same. I think after the second half, I thought, let's take Sterling off, let him have a little bit of a rest, let Sancho on, get someone that's going to pick ball up and drive, and just again, it's the same thing every time. Every question we've had has had an answer, and every time we've questioned what this England side is doing, they've completely silenced us after a couple of minutes. It's just been we've never had this, and this is just.
I think we're going to need to go back after Sunday's final. We're going to need to go back on our predictions episode and see what we were all saying.
No. George is only saying that because England are going to win the Euros.
Can we put a disclaimer out here that George held us at gunpoint for controversy? Told me and Harry to say round of 16. Productions back at Fourmation Gower Street House have just told us we had to do that.
Very happy to be proved wrong in this case.
100%. And I'm enjoying the nice football before the Premier League starts, and I'm back to getting battered every week.
One thing we haven't quite touched on specifically yet is the penalty award for that Harry Kane goal. No, I think it's worth mentioning. I think there's 2 points there's 2 points to address. First of all, the fact that there was a second ball on the pitch, which I think is that's kind of gone under the radar a little bit.
Honestly, I've watched that goal so many times, I've not even realised until somebody pointed it out on Twitter.
Which I don't know. I suppose you couldn't say that affected it too much, but it's still a weird scenario when that happens because you very rarely see it. And then, of course, the actual award itself. Now, I think if it was the other way, I think we would be sat here now being very, very angry.
Absolutely.
But do we care?
Football. That's football, isn't it? All football fans are hypocrites. If the situation's turned on your team, you're going to be angry. If it's not, then you're going to be ecstatic like we are. But you could argue the Harry Kane one was probably more of a penalty than the Sterling one in the end. I think he's probably the initial contact from Mailer. There's barely any of it for him to initially go down. There's arguably more contact from the other player. I'm not sure it was. He was bunched up with them. So definitely a soft one, but whatever.
I mean, you argue that that's Sterling's style of play down to a T, though. He always looks like when he's driving at players, he's already a third the way down, ready to go down. But he's that quick. He's agile, and any sort of touch, he's ready to go down. And you got to play for it. Yeah, every team has dark arts. We saw Italy's Ciro Immobile, whatever that was. I'm not even going to say, but.
A miraculous recovery. I'm not sure.
I mean, do you think that, I know England fans are getting heavily criticised for it, but do you think we won't be as much fans of Jack Grealish if that dark art sort of mentality wasn't there with him either? Just don't knock us down because questions are getting answered.
Yeah, I'm just glad it wasn't obviously it wouldn't be an English referee, but you know what I mean about all these VAR decisions in the Premier League, and you saw those sort of things every single week. I'm just glad that it's not our fault. It wasn't Anthony Taylor or anyone from our side. It was completely a neutral board. So don't come moaning at us. It's just one of those things. It happens. You've seen them give and you've seen them not. I know it's a cliche, but it's football, like Sam said. It's what happens, and we've had 203 different things go against us in the recent years. So to have one go for us, it's just nice to see. And I still believe that if it was 1-0, we would have
coming,
scored
baby.
anyway. I know it's an impossible thing to say because we'll never know. We'll never know if we would have scored, but I think we would have scored anyway. So it's just a bit unfortunate from the Denmark point of view that that's the thing that sealed the game and knocked them out.
The thing is, there was contact there, so it's not like he's just gone down.
Minimal.
It was very minimal contact. I mean,
and that's what made him go down. It wasn't the second one. He was already going down, but
It'll be interesting now next season if Sterling goes down under minimal contact for Man City, and you're kind of like,
that's what I mean.
Cheat,
That's what I mean.
We're
all hypocrites.
100%, Sam.
There's no room for this sort of stuff because if it was Wales, if it was Scotland, they'd be saying the same things as we are. So have a day off, seriously.
Yeah. But I will complain about it next season if it's against us. But I will cheer for us next season if it's for us. So it's just the way it is.
We'd all be raging if it was against us. So.
And also, if it was that bad of a dive or a penalty, not a penalty, surely VAR would have taken that because they'd have said, well, it is obvious that it's a dive, and they'd have overturned it. So
do you think at Wembley, because it was at Wembley, that not had a bearing on the decision, but I think even though because they are like thousands of miles away, the fact that it was at the England home stadium, and you've got to have serious bottle to overturn an England penalty at Wembley in front of 60,000 people. There's got to be some serious cojones going on involved there if you want to do that.
It's a very good point. I haven't thought
they're
of
in
that.
a different suite, aren't they? So,
but during this tournament, there's been very few decisions that have been overturned. They've tended to have stuck with what the referee has said on field, which I like, and I very much like in this instance. But at least they've been consistent.
Yeah, and it almost feels too soon, having only watched the game last night and gone through all the emotions. But it's probably about time now that, like the England players, we look ahead to Sunday's final. I can't believe I'm saying that, to be honest. But Sunday's final between England and Italy. At this point, how are we feeling? Do you feel?
I haven't had a chance to think about it yet. It's just that it's going to be interesting.
An epic game, I think. Italy are very much worthy opponents. It'd be a monumental feat to beat this Italian side 33 games and beaten 13-1 in a row. So it would just be the cherry on top to beat a team that is in such red hot form. Would
you say they're the favourites coming into the game?
No, purely because it's at Wembley, and that's a big factor. I think it's very much a big factor. So, but definitely
probably the two best defences in the tournament as well, isn't it? I'm not sure statistically, but it pretty much is.
Yeah.
It's just if Italy play restricted like they did against Spain, I think we're good enough on the ball to be able to restrict Italy from doing their thing. I think we are quite, even though they're penetrating good areas, we're quite good at stopping that. And if you have like the likes of Calvin Phillips, really because Verratti's going to be aggressive in them areas. And I think Calvin Phillips would be a really good matchup against
They're going to be aggressive everywhere, the Italians. That's how they play.
This is where Southgate comes into his prime. We put every single defender we've got on and sit back. This is the first time that I felt like we have, like we said, we've matched up against teams. We've picked on based on who we're coming up against. It'd be interesting to see whether he actually resorts to a three at the back, because even though Italy set up 4-3-3, at times it's like a three at the back because what's his name? The right back sort of tucks in as a back three. Chiellini comes across, Emerson goes up.
Di Lorenzo.
And that's it. And it sort of comes on there. I'm going to be honest. I'm looking forward to the battle between Chiesa and Shaw, because I think if he starts, I really love Chiesa. He's such a good player.
You don't love him on Sunday.
Oh no! On Sunday, I'm hoping he's more Tom Rosenthal from Friday Night Dinner than Chiesa. But overall, it's just I don't know. I don't want to put too much on it because we've seen Italy having to. We said we've said in the past, Italy are going to be too good. They're going to be too hard going forward. The overloads will work. They'll just outpass teams. They'll outwork it, and they haven't, as we've seen. And we know how to. If there's anything that the English can do, it's annoy people, and that's what we've got to do on Sunday.
Yeah, and Italy will certainly be out to annoy that Wembley crowd. I would usually ask for predictions, but I think at this stage, I think we're all just gonna. We're firstly not really thinking too much about the final because we're a little bit scared about the prospect, but at the same time, we're all going to say an England win, aren't we?
Yeah.
So
Easily.
I mean, we're still, George. We can't. I'm very superstitious. We can't back off it. We've got to give predictions. We've given predictions all this way. Come on, George. Have some cojones.
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a 2-0 England win. I think we'll score one early in the second half and then one on the counter attack, with
Very specific.
like 2 minutes to go.
Oh, a 2 minutes to go one would be brilliant because that's when you know you've won, and then the stadium will just absolutely erupt. Oh, I'm more than happy for that.
Floods of tears. Again, for the third game in a row, I'll be crying.
That almost sounds too comfortable, though. Now I think about
it's
it.
going to be comfortable.
What do you guys think, Harry?
A comfortable 2-0 win. We're not going to be challenged. Easy. Simple as that.
I think we're going to come across as way too confident to other people who maybe don't want England.
Absolutely, but that's who we are, isn't it?
Go on, Sam. What do you think?
1-0 AET, I think.
Lovely stuff, Devon.
I'm going to go 2-1 AET to England. I think Italy are bound to score, aren't they?
No. I'm going to go all in, and I'm going to say they're not even going to have a shot on target. They'll have shots. They're not going to have one on target, though. It's going to be comfortable. I've said it here. Come back, and you'll see.
Which scoreline, Harry? Quickly.
2-0. They'll have shots, but none will be on target. We'll be defensively resolute, and it's going to be simple.
Blimey,
I just hope Pickford got all of those mistakes that he's got in him out on Wednesday night, last night. Hopefully all the misplaced passes will now be out of his system, and we'll be able to play perfectly. And I can't wait to see Insigne come through the right, come onto his right, curl it to the top corner, and Pickford just tips it over.
Yeah, sounds good to me. We're all very confident then. What a night last night was. Let's hope for one more on Sunday. Enjoy the final wherever you're watching it. Hopefully next week we will be sat here as Euro 2020 winners, but we shall see. See you next time.
Goodbye.